The first thing you notice is the cold. Not the sharp kind that bites, but a quiet chill that creeps along your spine and settles into your skin. A rooster calls in the distance, not from a farm nearby, but from somewhere lost in time. You open your eyes slowly. Above you, a ceiling made of dark wooden beams looms overhead. Light seeps through thin paper windows, casting a soft golden hue across the room. Dust drifts lazily in the air, and the faint smell of smoke and damp straw fills your lungs. You try to move, but your back aches. You're lying on a rough straw mat placed on bare wooden boards. There's no mattress, no blankets, only this simple mat and a block of wood that served as a pillow. You sit up slowly, your muscles sore and confused. You expect to see something familiar, a lamp, a phone, a carpet. But the room is empty. No furniture, no wires, no switches. Just a low hearth in the center with a pot suspended over dying embers and a few ceramic bowls scattered nearby. Looking down, you notice the clothes on your body. A loose-fitting cotton robe, faded and stained. The fabric feels coarse against your skin. It's tied with a fraying rope, and you realize nothing you're wearing belongs to you. Your feet are bare, dusty. You take a breath. It's quiet. Too quiet. You rise carefully, sliding open the fragile paper door. It makes a soft rasp as it moves. Outside, the world is waking. A low mist clings to the earth, blurring the edges of the landscape. Small wooden huts line a narrow path, their roofs thick with thatch. In the distance, a farmer trudges through a rice paddy, balancing a yoke across his shoulders. A woman washes something by a stone basin, humming a slow tune. Chickens scatter across the yard as two barefoot children chase them, giggling. No one seems surprised to see you, but no one greets you either. You are an outsider here, not feared, just invisible. A soft cough behind you draws your attention. An elderly man stands nearby, bent with age. His robe is patched, his hands gnarled, and his expression unreadable beneath his straw hat. He speaks, but the words are foreign. Ancient Japanese, unfamiliar and formal. You don't understand. He doesn't repeat himself. Instead, he points, first to a wooden bucket resting near the door, then toward a dirt path winding into the trees. His message is clear. Fetch water. That's your task. You hesitate. Your instincts reach for a phone that isn't there. Search for a sign, a map, a voice that will explain everything. But there is none. You're alone, in a world centuries older than your own, with no instructions and no escape. The bucket feels heavier than it should as you lift it. The handle digs into your palm. You step forward, out of the hut and onto the cold, packed earth. The village doesn't stop. Life continues around you, rhythmically, indifferently. Each step takes you further from what you know. The path is narrow and uneven, flanked by low fences and rice fields still wet from the morning dew. Your feet slip occasionally, unused to the mud. A crow caws from a tree overhead, and a gust of wind stirs the mist around you. In the distance, a bell rings softly, its purpose unknown, its sound ancient and haunting. You feel it now, deep in your chest. You don't belong here. The year is 1467. The Sengoku period has begun, an era of fractured power, endless war, and strict social codes. You are a stranger. You have no name, no status, no protection. And this simple journey to fetch water is only the beginning of what lies ahead. The path to the stream winds through the edge of the village, where fences made from twisted sticks mark the borders of simple homes. Chickens scatter as you walk, and you pass a young girl crouched by a garden, her hands deep in the soil. She looks up briefly, then lowers her gaze again, saying nothing. You grip the bucket tighter, unsure if your presence is being tolerated or simply ignored. The morning air is cool, but carries a dampness that clings to your skin. Your robe, already too thin for comfort, grows heavier as the humidity soaks in. As you approach the trees, the sounds of the village begin to fade, replaced by the rustle of bamboo and the gentle murmur of water ahead. You step carefully along a foot-worn trail lined with smooth stones and tufts of moss. Every detail feels alive. The smell of wet earth, the crunch of gravel under your heel, the occasional snap of a twig echoing louder than it should. At last, you reach the stream. It's narrow, but fast-flowing. Its water cold and shockingly clear. You kneel at the edge, dipping your fingers in first. It stings your skin, sending a chill up your arm. There's no faucet here, no soap, no regulation. Just nature, pure and indifferent. You fill the bucket slowly, watching the water swirl inside. It's heavier now, and the journey back will be worse. As you rise, your back aches again. Your legs are already sore from a night on the floor. Every step reminds you how soft modern life has made you, and how little of that softness exists here. The weight of the bucket throws off your balance. You adjust your grip. There's no choice but to press forward. Back in the village, smoke begins to rise from chimneys as families prepare their first meal. The scent of rice mingles with the sharpness of pickled vegetables and something faintly metallic, perhaps miso or fish. You pass a home where two women kneel on the porch, rhythmically pounding steamed rice into mochi with large wooden hammers. Neither of them acknowledges you. You are not expected to speak, only to carry out your task. You return to the hut and set the bucket down beside the fire. The old man is waiting. He does not speak, but his eyes flicker briefly with approval. He stirs the pot over the embers and gestures for you to sit. You lower yourself onto the tatami mat, legs folded awkwardly beneath you, trying to imitate the way he sits, knees tucked, spine straight. Your ankles begin to cramp almost immediately. A woman, perhaps his daughter, enters quietly and places two bowls in front of you. One contains steamed rice, the other a cloudy broth with a few floating pieces of tofu and green onion. You watch as they bow their heads before eating, and you do the same, unsure if it's prayer or habit. The food is simple, bland even, but warm. And in this moment, it is everything. You eat slowly, uncertain whether you're allowed to speak. No one does. The room is silent, save for the soft sounds of chopsticks against bowls and the occasional clearing of a throat. You finish your meal quickly but pretend to eat longer, not wanting to appear ungrateful. When you're done, you bow again, imitating the old man, who nods once before rising. He says something to the woman, who glances at you, then disappears into the back room. Moments later, she returns with a folded garment, another robe, darker and cleaner than your own, and places it in your hands. You're expected to change, but no one guides you. You step outside behind the hut, where a bamboo screen offers a bit of privacy. You struggle with the knots and layers. The fabric wraps in strange ways, and your fingers fumble with the sash. You remember the man's expression earlier, and you realize how easily a wrong color or fold might offend someone here. Clothing, you're beginning to understand, is not personal. It's social code, and you don't speak the language. You return inside, unsure if you've dressed correctly. No one says anything. But the old man points toward the door again, and this time, he holds a small rake. You understand what comes next. You will work, you will serve, and the real day, has only just begun. The morning moves forward without pause. There are no clocks in feudal Japan, but everyone seems to know exactly when it's time to begin. The air has warmed slightly, but the mist still lingers low to the ground, softening the edges of the world. You step outside once more, following the old man as he walks slowly down a narrow path. His gait is steady but worn, the kind that comes from a lifetime of repetition. The village is more alive now. You hear tools clinking, quiet footsteps, and the distant sound of someone sweeping a dirt path with a reed broom. In the center of a small open space, a group of men squat on their heels, talking in low tones. Women move in and out of doorways, their hands always occupied, carrying bundles, wringing cloth, arranging firewood. Children are mostly silent, already engaged in small tasks. There is no idle chatter, no laughter. The day has begun, and every moment has its place. You are led to a wooden bench near a small cooking shelter, where a woman ladles rice from a steaming pot into simple clay bowls. She wears a faded indigo robe and a scarf tied neatly over her hair. Her hands move with practiced precision. She does not look at you. She doesn't need to. You are not a guest. You are just another mouth to feed. She places a bowl in front of you. The rice is warm and perfectly shaped, slightly sticky, with a small pickled plum resting in the center like a jewel. Alongside it, she sets down a wooden dish with a few strips of dried seaweed and a single slice of radish. There is no meat, no spices, no garnish. This is breakfast, and you are expected to be grateful. You sit cross-legged in the dirt, mimicking the posture of the others. Your knees protest again. You're not used to this way of sitting. Back straight, legs folded tightly. Within minutes, your lower limbs begin to go numb. You shift, subtly, but even that draws a glance. Everyone here sits quietly. Their bodies endure what yours cannot. You bring the rice bowl to your lips. The scent is clean, familiar, but humbling. Each grain tastes earthy and plain. The pickled plum hits your tongue with a sharp jolt. Salty, sour, a flavor so bold it makes your eyes sting. You chew slowly, remembering the ease of modern breakfasts, the smooth richness of coffee, the sweetness of fruit, the luxury of choice. Here, there is no choice. There is only sustenance. Around you, no one speaks. The silence is not awkward. It is ritual. Eyes are downcast. Eating is an act of respect, not pleasure. The quiet is filled only by the faint tapping of chopsticks against bowls and the occasional sip of warm barley tea. As you eat, your mind wanders. You imagine waking in your own bed just hours ago, wrapped in soft sheets, scrolling through your phone, surrounded by comfort. That world feels impossibly far now. A dream wrapped in digital noise. Here, your hands are dirty, your legs ache, and your only task is to finish the food, rise, and begin the day's labor. When the bowls are emptied and carefully stacked, the men begin to rise without a word. The old man stands slowly, nods once in your direction, then turns to follow the others down the path leading toward the fields. You look around. No one waits for you. No one asks if you're ready. You rise too, brushing the dust from your knees. The morning meal has ended, not with conversation, not with comfort, but with quiet obedience. The sun has lifted above the trees now, casting long shadows on the dirt. Insects hum faintly in the air, and birds flit between the rooftops. Somewhere nearby, a gate creaks open. Tools clink together. Rice fields shimmer in the light. You follow. There is no time to rest. In this world, labor is not a burden. It is survival. The sun is climbing steadily now, though its warmth remains filtered by a thin veil of morning haze. You return to the hut briefly before the work begins, only to be handed a folded bundle of cloth by the woman from earlier. She does not speak, but her glance says enough. You are expected to change. The robe you were given earlier was temporary, perhaps for sleeping. Now it is time to dress properly. You carry the bundle to the back of the hut, where a simple bamboo screen offers the illusion of privacy. The ground beneath your feet is cold and uneven. As you unfold the garments, you quickly realize you have no idea how to wear them. There is no zipper, no buttons, no elastic, only layers of fabric, strange folds, and an unfamiliar sash. The underlayer is light, almost like linen, but rough to the touch. You drape it around yourself as best you can, unsure where it should fall or how tight to tie it. The outer robe, heavier, darker, slips over your shoulders, but the sleeves hang awkwardly, and the fabric gathers uncomfortably around your arms. The obi belt confuses you most of all. You loop it around your waist once, then again, but it feels too tight, then too loose. You adjust and adjust again, fumbling with knots that don't hold. Eventually, you tie it off in a way that seems secure, though not entirely correct. You glance down at yourself. The layers feel stiff and foreign. The robe scratches slightly against your skin. The knot sits too high or maybe too low. You try walking. The fabric pulls strangely with each step. There's no sense of freedom, only restraint. You wonder if everyone else around you feels this way, or if the discomfort is simply another reminder that you don't belong. Stepping out from behind the screen, you catch a glimpse of an older woman walking past. Her kimono is faded but neatly arranged, the folds perfectly aligned, the sash tight and symmetrical. She walks with quiet grace, every movement fluid, every detail deliberate. She doesn't look at you, but you can feel the difference between her and you. Not just in style, but in dignity. Here, clothing is more than fabric. It is identity, status, and discipline. The old man approaches and eyes your outfit. He says nothing, but his gaze lingers for a moment longer than before. He notices the crooked tie, the twisted sleeve. He does not correct you, but you feel the weight of being out of place. He turns and gestures again, this time with a simple farming tool in hand. A small wooden rake, worn smooth by years of use. You take it, the handle warm from the morning sun. Your sleeves fall over your hands as you grip it. You try to roll them back, but they slip forward again. You carry the tool awkwardly, your steps hindered by the unfamiliar folds of your robe. It's hard to walk without stumbling. As you join the others on the narrow dirt path that leads toward the fields, you become aware of how much these clothes shape you, how they affect your posture, your breath, your movement. The fabric rustles with each step, and the belt presses tightly against your stomach. You cannot run in this. You cannot slouch. You must move carefully, intentionally, slowly, and perhaps that is the point. In this world, every gesture means something. Every crease and fold in your robe speaks louder than your voice. And though you do not yet know the language, you are learning, with every misstep, every crooked knot, every uneasy breath, what it means to dress not for comfort, but for culture. The fields appear at the edge of the horizon now, golden and wet beneath the morning light. Figures are already moving among them, bent low, their robes tucked high, their hands deep in the soil. You are not dressed to observe. You are dressed to join, and there is no turning back. The fields unfold before you like a painting brought to life. Long rows of rice paddies stretch across the valley, shimmering beneath the pale sun. Thin lines of mud separate the flooded plots, their surfaces broken by hundreds of tiny green shoots swaying gently in the breeze. The sound of insects humming rises steadily with the warmth of the day, and above you, cranes glide in slow circles, watching with timeless detachment. You are not alone here. All around you, men and women are already working. Their backs are bent low, feet submerged in water, hands moving rhythmically through the mud. They do not pause to acknowledge you. Their movements are fluid, almost mechanical, refined by years of repetition and necessity. You step onto the dike, your sandals slipping slightly on the damp surface, and immediately feel out of place. The robe clings to your skin. Your tool hangs awkwardly in your hand. You stand taller than you should, not in pride, but in confusion. A young boy beside you, no older than 12, glances up briefly and then looks away. His expression is unreadable, but his body continues its motion without interruption. Next to him, an older woman whispers something under her breath and shakes her head. You cannot understand her words, but the message is clear. You are clumsy, slow, a disruption to the order they know. You try to mimic what you see, stepping carefully into the shallow paddy, sinking ankle-deep in cold water. It sends a jolt through your body. The mud clutches at your feet like thick hands, and every movement requires effort. You bend forward, trying to copy the planting motion, but the water ripples too much, the chute slips from your fingers, and you lose balance. Your foot slides, your arm flails, and you catch yourself just before falling completely. There is a small laugh from somewhere behind you, a quiet one, quickly silenced. No one says anything, but you feel the weight of their eyes. You've made a mistake, not just in movement, but in dignity. Here, labor is sacred. Everyone has their place, and yours is undefined, uncertain, unstable. You look around, searching for guidance, but no one offers help. They do not reject you outright. They simply absorb your presence into their silence. You are invisible, and yet, somehow still too obvious. Hours pass, or what feels like hours. The sun rises higher, and the work continues without break. There is no bell, no timer, no schedule you can understand. Only the slow march of time measured by aching legs, burning shoulders, and the deepening silence in your chest. You begin to notice the unspoken rules that govern this place. How the women work together on one side of the field, how the younger boys remain close to older relatives, how no one crosses certain invisible lines. Status here is not just visible. It is embedded into every breath, every movement. You see how the lowest workers bow slightly when a man walks past wearing a cleaner robe and wooden sandals. He carries no tools. He observes, hands behind his back, offering no labor, only judgment. No one meets his gaze. When he looks at you, his eyes linger. You feel naked under that stare, not physically, but socially. You are not peasant. You are not artisan. You are not merchant, nor monk, nor samurai. You are no one. A foreigner without name, rank, or role. And in this world, that is the most dangerous thing to be. Back in your own time, you lived with the illusion that everyone was equal. That dignity was a right, that you could speak and be heard. But here, in the rigid hierarchy of feudal Japan, your voice has no weight. Your mistakes are amplified. Your silence is safer than your words. You recall history books, museum displays, cinematic reenactments. They showed villages and rituals, armor and cherry blossoms. They never showed this. The constant pressure of knowing your place and never stepping out of it. The quiet brutality of enforced humility. The way people lower their eyes when someone of higher birth walks by. Not from fear, but because it is the only way they have ever known to survive. As the sun begins to reach its peak, you pause for a moment to wipe your forehead. Your hands are shaking. Your back is soaked in sweat. You look around and see that no one else has stopped. To pause is to appear weak, and weakness is another social sin. You plant one more shoot, your fingers trembling slightly. You try to stand straight, but your legs protest. Still, you bow your head and return to the rhythm. This is not your world, but you must pretend, for now, that it is. The social weight here is invisible. There are no chains, no guards, but you feel bound all the same, not by law, but by expectation. And in this place, expectation is everything. By midday, the sun rests high above the village, casting sharp shadows across the rice fields. The light is no longer gentle. It burns. Sweat beads on your neck, slides down your back, and soaks into the linen of your borrowed robe. Your fingers, caked with mud, twitch from fatigue. Still, no one speaks of stopping. You sense it. The timing of breaks, of meals, of rest, is not your choice to make. The air is thick and slow. A distant bell chimes once, maybe twice, and the farmers around you begin to straighten. You do the same, though later than the others. They step back from the fields in quiet unison, rinsing their hands in a shared basin and wiping their faces with cloths tucked into their belts. There is no need for words. Their bodies move as if to a rhythm you cannot hear. You follow them back to the village square, feeling the ache in your calves and the pull of fabric around your waist. Your robe is stained now, the belt twisted, your sleeves hanging unevenly. You feel disheveled, and worse, aware of it. You find a shaded corner and sink to your knees on the ground, stretching your legs slightly, trying to massage the numbness from your toes. A young man passes you and frowns. His steps slow, just for a second. Then he continues without a word. You don't know what you did wrong, but you feel the correction nonetheless. Later, you shift your position, extending one leg to ease the pain. An older woman nearby glances toward you and then pointedly averts her eyes. You realize you should not be sitting like this. Proper posture, you begin to understand, is not about comfort. It's about respect. There are rules here, everywhere, and none of them are written down. You rise, bowing slightly as you pass a group of villagers. One man bows back, slightly less than you did. Another bows deeper. You don't know what it means, but you file it away. There is a hierarchy in every motion. Every bow is a negotiation of status. Too low and you appear subservient. Too shallow and you offend. You pass a small shrine along the road. Others bow before it, so you do the same. A child watches you with curious eyes, noting how awkwardly you move, how late your bow is compared to theirs. You feel the flush of embarrassment rise to your face, even though no one says a word. Here, even your silence is judged. You watch the locals carefully, how they walk with hands folded over their stomachs, how they never point, never raise their voices, never touch unnecessarily. When two men speak, their heads remain slightly bowed, eyes lowered, hands visible. Their language is soft, formal, layered with ritual. You catch only a few words. Gozaimasu, wanegai, sama. But their tone says more than the words ever could. You remember how easily you once greeted strangers with a wave, a smile, an easy hello. But here, nothing is casual. You cannot simply smile. Even that gesture might be read as improper, too forward, too foreign. Later, you are handed a small bundle of dried seaweed and told to deliver it to the next house. The woman who gives it to you nods once, and you nod in return. You take a step, then stop. Should you carry it with two hands? Is one hand disrespectful? You glance around too quickly. You see others watching. You bow again, unsure if it's necessary. The short walk becomes a test. Every movement feels exaggerated. Every breath too loud. When you finally reach the neighboring home, a man steps outside. You offer the bundle with both hands, head slightly lowered. He accepts it without a word, but bows. A subtle nod of approval, or perhaps tolerance. It is impossible to know. Even eating carries rules. When tea is offered later in the day, you notice how others turn the cup slightly before sipping. You try to imitate them, hands shaking slightly. You bow too deeply. Someone coughs behind you. Not laughter, not anger, just an audible note of difference. You have done it wrong. Again, the pressure builds not through punishment, but through presence. Through eyes that linger, through silence that fills the space between actions. You are learning not from instruction, but from discomfort. And that, you realize, is the most terrifying part. No one explains the rules. You must feel them. They surround you. In the tilt of a head, in the way shoes are lined up outside a home, in the silence before someone speaks, in the weight of a glance. They're in every layer of clothing, every step you take, every breath you hold just a little too long. You used to think that oppression came with iron bars, shouted orders, raised fists. But here, it is much quieter. Here, control is maintained by shame, by silence, by centuries of repetition. And it is crushing. The sun has barely begun to dip toward the western hills, but your body is already failing. What began as a slight ache in your lower back has crept into your shoulders, your knees, your chest. Every muscle throbs with fatigue. Your fingers are swollen and red, joints stiff from awkward movements and relentless repetition. Even the skin beneath your nails feels tender, scratched by grit and soaked for hours in muddy water. But it isn't just soreness. There's a deeper sensation now, something hollow and aching behind your eyes. Your head feels heavy, the light stings, and your throat is beginning to dry, scratchy and raw with each shallow breath. You've been sweating all day under the weight of the sun and unfamiliar cloth, but now your skin feels oddly cold, your hands trembling despite the lingering warmth in the air. You try to ignore it. Illness here is not an option. No one talks about being tired. No one asks how you feel. There are no thermometers, no pills, no soft beds in which to recover. You keep moving, slowly, cautiously, as if pretending will delay whatever is coming. The villagers show no sign of slowing down. Even the elderly continue their work with quiet efficiency. A man twice your age lifts a bundle of firewood without flinching. A girl no older than 10 balances 2 water buckets along a yoke with practiced steps. You, in contrast, move with hesitation. Each breath feels shorter than the last. By the time you return to the hut, the sun is touching the edge of the mountains, and a low orange glow paints the edges of rooftops and trees. The air smells of smoke again, thicker now, richer, as cooking fires are lit throughout the village. But your stomach turns. The scent, instead of comforting, makes you nauseous. Inside, the room feels darker than before, or maybe your vision is dimming. You sit, slowly, gratefully, on the mat, legs folding beneath you with difficulty. The old man enters and sets a bowl of warm broth in front of you. It should be soothing. It should be welcome. But the smell hits your nose like a wave. Fermented vegetables, boiled bones, hints of garlic. And you fight the sudden urge to gag. Still, you eat. You sip slowly, each swallow like a stone sliding down your throat. The warmth spreads through your chest, but it doesn't comfort. Your hands tremble around the bowl. You place it down halfway through, pretending you've had enough. The old man doesn't question it. He doesn't need to. He watches you, though, just briefly. And in his eyes, there is something ancient. Not pity, not concern, just recognition. He's seen this before. He knows what it means when a newcomer's body begins to fail, when the fever begins to rise. You lie down early, curling onto the mat as the last of the light fades. There is no pillow, no blanket, no medicine. Just the sound of distant wind chimes outside, swaying gently in the evening breeze. Your head pounds. Your skin alternates between hot and cold. Your thoughts blur into one another. You wonder what will happen if you don't wake. If this body, untrained, unused to hardship, simply gives up during the night. You think of doctors, of pharmacies, of running water, of soft sheets and air conditioning, of how far away all of that is now. Outside, the night deepens. Crickets sing in the grass. Someone coughs in the distance. A dog barks once, then goes silent. And your body, heavy and trembling, begins to surrender to sleep. Not restful, not healing, but the only escape this world allows. You're not dead, not yet, but you're sick. And in feudal Japan, that's nearly the same thing. Morning comes with no mercy. Your sleep was shallow, interrupted by chills, dreams you can't remember, and the steady creak of the wooden walls shifting with the night wind. Your body is sore, your fever still simmering, but the village stirs again, and that means you must rise. There is no room for illness here. The day does not wait. You step outside slowly. The light is soft, filtered through clouds that hang low and gray. A drizzle has begun. Not heavy, but enough to darken the earth and fill the air with the scent of wet soil and thatch. The sky looks like it could break open at any moment, but no one mentions the weather. They move through the rain like it isn't there, their shoulders hunched, robes damp and clinging. Today, you are not sent to the fields. The old man points instead toward the edge of the village, where a path winds through tall grass toward a wider clearing. You follow, unsure of what awaits. The path grows stonier, lined with wooden stakes and thin bamboo fences. The air changes, not colder, but denser, as if the wind itself dares not speak here. And then you see them. At first, it's just one. A man in layered robes of muted blue and gray, standing still beneath a large cedar tree. His posture is perfect, motionless, like a statue carved from discipline. At his side, a long katana, its sheath black lacquer glinting with raindrops. His hand rests lightly on the hilt, not as a threat, but as a fact. He wears two swords, not one. And that alone tells you who he is. A samurai. Then you notice others. 3 more, standing a short distance away. They speak in low tones, heads slightly bowed toward the one beneath the cedar. You can't hear their words. You don't need to. Their presence speaks louder than language. You stop walking. Not because you were told to, but because your body refuses to take another step. Something inside you understands what you're seeing, even if your mind struggles to accept it. They are not kings. They do not wear crowns or golden rings. They are warriors, but not the kind you know from stories or cinema. There is no theatricality in them, no swagger, only stillness, control, lethality, hidden behind calm eyes and deliberate breath. One of them turns toward you, just slightly. His gaze is not curious, it is assessing. You bow instinctively, unsure how deep, unsure if it's enough. Your heart pounds. You remember the warnings. Never meet a samurai's eyes directly. Never speak unless spoken to. Never, under any circumstances, show disrespect. They can kill you, not metaphorically, not legally, literally. Their swords are not symbols. They are permissions. The samurai says nothing. He turns back to his companions, and the moment passes like wind through trees. But you remain frozen for a second longer, your breath caught in your throat. You retreat slowly, stepping back toward the path, head lowered. You feel the mud pull at your sandals, your hands gripping your sleeves, trying to make yourself smaller. You do not know their names, their ranks, or their loyalties. But you know this. They are the top of the social mountain, the peak of the invisible pyramid you've been struggling to climb. And from that height, they can look down on everyone, including you, with absolute certainty. Later that day, you learn more. You overhear 2 villagers whispering about a nearby dispute. A land argument, perhaps, or an insult at the market. The samurai will decide. There will be no court, no defense, no jury. Only a judgment. Swift and unquestioned. You ask nothing. You say nothing. But the weight of that truth settles heavily on your chest. In this world, violence is not an exception. It is a tool, polished, sheathed, and ever present. And those who wield it do not need to raise their voices. They speak in glances, in silence, in the way their hand never quite leaves the sword. You return to your corner of the village with a new awareness. It's not just mud that soils your robe, or fever that weighs down your limbs. It's fear, quiet, cold, and utterly rational. Because now you understand, this isn't just a hard life. It's a life lived under the shadow of the blade. You awaken the next morning with a heaviness that is no longer just physical. Something in the village has shifted. The air is quieter. The eyes of those around you move more cautiously. Conversations are brief and whispered. Even the wind seems to hold its breath. You feel it before you know it, that something has gone wrong. The old man gestures for you to follow. This time, not to the fields or the well. He says a word you don't understand, but his expression is tight, his jaw clenched. You walk behind him down a narrow path lined with low hedges and lantern posts. Others fall in behind you, silent and slow. A procession of stillness. The path widens into an open clearing in the center of the village. You've passed it before, thinking it was used for ceremonies or festivals. But today, it is different. Today, it is a stage. A small wooden platform stands at the center, no more than a few feet tall, but every eye is fixed on it. Beside it, two men in brown robes, not peasants, but not quite samurai, stand with spears crossed. Their expressions are blank, not cruel, not angry, just absent, as if what is about to happen has no emotional weight for them at all. On the platform, bound at the wrists, kneels a young man. His head is bowed, his clothes torn and dirty. You don't recognize him. Perhaps he came from another village. Perhaps he lived just beyond your notice all this time. It doesn't matter. Not now. The old man stands beside you, arms folded into his sleeves. His eyes are fixed on the platform, unblinking. You glance at him, then back to the scene before you. A third figure appears. A man in a cleaner robe, standing tall with a scroll in hand. He reads something aloud. You catch only fragments. The words are sharp. Stealing, dishonor, shame. There is no reply from the kneeling man. He doesn't beg. He doesn't cry. He waits. You think of trials, of lawyers, of questions and doubt. Here, there are none. The accusation has been made. The sentence has been chosen. It is not justice as you know it. It is balance, and it is brutal. Two more men step forward. One carries a bamboo rod, thick and polished from use. The other carries a long blade, sheathed but ready. You do not want to understand what they are for, but you do. The man with the rod moves first. He says nothing as he strikes. One blow, two. The sound echoes through the clearing like a drumbeat. The kneeling man does not scream. He grunts once, then again. By the fifth strike, he sways slightly, his body struggling to stay upright. On the sixth, he falls forward, not unconscious, but broken. There is a pause. Then, slowly, the man with the rod steps back. The man with the sword does not move. Not yet. Not unless the crime demands it. The one with the scroll reads again. A shorter passage this time. A decision has been made. The sword remains sheathed. The kneeling man will live. For now. But his punishment is not over. Two villagers step forward and bind his arms again. They drag him from the platform, his feet scraping against the wood, his head still bowed. The crowd parts silently, no one looking directly at him. Not from pity, from habit. You stand frozen. You had read of punishments in feudal societies. You had seen illustrations. You thought you understood. But standing here, in the thick, wet air of a village where everyone knows their place, you realize how little you knew. The law is not meant to be debated. It is meant to be seen. This ritual, public and precise, is not for the man on the platform. It is for everyone else, for you. You feel your heart pounding as the old man turns and walks away. You follow, slower this time. Behind you, villagers begin to move again. Back to the fields. Back to the tasks of survival. The punishment has been delivered. Order has been restored. But something inside you has shifted. You realize that in this world, the margin for error is razor thin. A wrong glance, a missed bow, a misunderstanding over food or fabric. All of it can become fatal if witnessed by the wrong eyes. There are no warnings here, No second chances, no explanations. You think about your own mistakes. The times you sat improperly, the times you failed to bow, the way you fumbled with your robe, your tools, your words. Any of those could have drawn notice. One day, they still might. You return to the hut and kneel quietly on the mat. The food brought to you tastes of ash. The warmth of the fire does not reach your skin. You are not just tired, you are afraid. And fear in this place is wisdom. Night in the village does not arrive all at once. It slips in slowly, like mist creeping down from the mountains. The final hours of daylight stretch long and thin across the fields, and the sky, once warm and golden, fades into a deep blue haze. The clouds thicken, drifting low and heavy, casting shadows even before the sun fully disappears. You sit near the edge of the hut, your back against the wooden frame, watching the last of the villagers retreat indoors one by one, each person vanishing behind sliding doors as if the evening itself were swallowing them. There are no candles placed in windows, no fire-lit torches along the paths. Once the doors are closed, the village seems to disappear into itself. The light from inside the homes is faint and flickering, too soft to spill out into the streets. Darkness here is not fought. It is accepted, lived with, and obeyed. You remain outside a little longer, perhaps too long, trying to convince yourself that the fading light is not ominous. But it is. The air has grown colder. Even the birds have gone silent. When you finally step back inside the hut, it feels emptier than before. The fire has been reduced to little more than red glowing coals, humming faintly with heat. Smoke curls lazily through the room, too thin to choke, but enough to linger on your skin and in your lungs. The old man lies curled near the hearth, wrapped in his robe, eyes closed, mouth slack in the loose breath of sleep. His posture, though still, does not seem peaceful. There's tension in his shoulders, a wariness even in unconsciousness. You wonder if anyone here truly sleeps deeply. You lower yourself onto the mat and pull your robe tighter, trying to find warmth in its thin, damp folds. The floor beneath is hard, uneven, and cold. Your limbs are sore again, not from one day of labor, but from all the days piling up on top of each other. Your back aches, your hands throb, and your fever, though quieted during the day, now stirs again as your body slows down. The room spins ever so slightly, and your breath comes short and shallow. Outside, the wind begins to pick up, not loud, but persistent. A low rustling in the trees, a distant moan through narrow alleys and thatched rooftops. A bamboo chime clicks softly against a post outside. Its sound is irregular, and each pause between notes is long enough to let dread settle before the next one strikes. Then you hear something else. A creak. It's faint. So faint that at first you think it's in your head, just the memory of a sound. But then it comes again. A slow, deliberate shift of wood, like the pressure of a foot against an old floorboard. Your body tenses. You stay completely still, ears straining against the silence. Nothing follows. You tell yourself it was the hut settling or the wind pressing against the roof. But the fire crackles once, and you flinch at the sound. The silence that follows feels too complete, too artificial, like the pause before something breaks. You glance toward the old man, but he hasn't stirred. His breathing remains steady. Perhaps he's used to such sounds. Perhaps he hears them and chooses not to respond. You lie back slowly, resting your head on the wooden block that serves as a pillow. It's hard and cold, but you no longer notice. Your body is too tired to protest. Your thoughts drift to the punishment you witnessed earlier. The platform, the silence, the strikes. You replay it all, moment by moment, even though you don't want to. You see the man kneeling. You see the faces in the crowd, blank and still. You feel again that same cold understanding. There is no mercy here. There is only obedience, or the consequences of failing to obey. The wind picks up again. It pushes through the walls, slips through the cracks, and brushes against your skin like invisible fingers. You close your eyes and try to focus on your breathing. Inhale, hold, exhale, repeat. Slowly, gently. But fear tightens in your chest. It isn't sharp, and it doesn't scream. It just presses. Heavily. Constantly. Like a stone placed carefully in the center of your chest. There is no real danger now. You know that. The door is shut. The fire still glows. The village is quiet. And yet, you cannot escape the feeling that something is watching. Not someone necessarily. Just something. The night itself. The land. The centuries of silence that have soaked into the wood. The soil. The stone. In this world, darkness does not protect. It listens, it waits, it remembers. You pull your robe tighter still and curl into yourself. You try to think of your old life, of warmth, electricity, the hum of machines, the glow of screens. But those memories are slippery now, fading like mist, and they offer no comfort. They belong to a different life, a different person. Here, in this time, you are small. You are silent. You are afraid. And the night, as always, says nothing. Morning returns with gray skies and thin rain. The rhythm of the village does not change. No one slows for weather. You wake early, though sleep never truly came. Your bones feel brittle, your muscles drained, but none of that matters. A day has begun, and in this place, days are not asked for. They are endured. Today, the old man does not take you to the fields. Instead, the woman who lives in the hut, the one who has cooked your food, washed the bowls, repaired your robe, gestures for you to follow her. She says nothing. She doesn't smile. But you understand. It is her turn to be watched, her world to be witnessed. You trail her quietly down the narrow paths that weave between homes. Unlike the men who walk openly with tools across their shoulders, the women move with their heads slightly bowed, their steps close and controlled. Most carry something. Bundles of cloth, buckets of water, baskets of vegetables. Their work is constant and invisible to those who do not look carefully. You look. The woman leads you to a house slightly larger than the others. She opens the door and steps inside without ceremony. You remove your sandals and enter. The interior is dim, the air heavy with smoke and starch. 3 other women are already inside, seated around a low table, hands busy with thread and fabric. They glance at you, say nothing, and return to their work. She sits beside them and begins folding a piece of cloth with practiced precision. You kneel at a respectful distance, unsure if you are meant to help. You watch. The women speak in hushed tones, never raising their voices, never laughing loudly. Their words are slow, careful, respectful. Every movement of their hands is precise. Their world is quiet, contained. For a long time, there is only the sound of thread pulling through fabric, of soft breathing and shifting robes. Then a baby begins to cry in a room nearby. One of the women rises, moves behind a curtain, and returns with an infant pressed against her chest. She doesn't shush the child. She simply holds it, rocks slowly, hums a tune you do not recognize. The others continue sewing without pause. There is no softness here. No softness allowed. Only endurance. The woman beside you winces slightly as she bends forward. Her hands are rough, her knuckles swollen. You notice a bruise just visible beneath the sleeve of her robe. No one mentions it. No one reacts. It is as if pain is a thing so ordinary, so common, it is no longer worth naming. Later, you are taken to a narrow garden behind the house. The women kneel in the dirt, planting herbs, pulling weeds, and brushing away stones with their bare fingers. Their knees sink into the mud. Their sleeves are stained. Still, they move gracefully, almost silently. There is no praise, no rest, no break from repetition. You try to help, mimicking their movements, and feel their eyes flicker toward you now and then. Not unkindly, but with detachment. You are not one of them. You do not carry their burdens. You do not belong to this world of quiet labor and unspoken rules. But for now, you are permitted to exist in it. As the sun rises higher and the rain lets up, the women return inside. One of them begins preparing rice. Another begins to spin thread. The baby has stopped crying and sleeps in the crook of its mother's arm as she works one-handed. The silence never fully lifts. There are no stories, no singing, no idle gossip. Just duty. Always duty. You begin to understand the weight they carry. Not just physical, but generational. These women are born into a structure that holds them in place like stones in a wall. They serve not only the household, but its honor, its stability, its rhythm. Their worth is measured in obedience, modesty, sacrifice. A smile out of place, a voice too loud, a gesture too bold. Any of it could bring shame to the family. And shame in this world is a wound that never fully heals. There is no escape. Marriage is arranged. Love is not guaranteed. Divorce is rare and disgraceful. Motherhood is expected. Pain is expected. Silence is expected. As the afternoon draws near, you are dismissed with a bow. The woman does not speak. She simply nods, and you step outside, blinking at the gray sky above. You walk back through the village, past homes where women sweep stoops, rinse vegetables, scrub cloths, and carry children on their backs. Their burdens are quiet, but they are everywhere. And now that you've seen them, you will never unsee them. By now, you have learned to walk with your eyes lowered and your steps measured. You no longer speak unless spoken to. You bow when others bow. You eat in silence. You endure the cold, the hunger, the watchful gazes. You begin to survive, not through understanding, but through mimicry. You have become quiet. And in this world, that is a form of wisdom. But there is something you still do not fully grasp. Something deeper than silence, older than law. You feel it in the way villagers pause when a name is spoken, in the way they step aside when a man with two swords walks by. It is not fear exactly, though fear plays its part. It is respect, forged not by kindness but by reputation. And reputation here is everything. That afternoon, you witness it. The thing no one talks about until it happens. A duel. You are walking back from the well, arms sore from carrying buckets, when a strange stillness settles over the village. Not the usual hush, but a silence with weight behind it. A silence that warns. You round a corner and see a small group gathered in the square. No one speaks. No one breathes louder than necessary. Two men stand at the center. One wears a dark robe, clean but plain. A peasant, or perhaps a merchant's apprentice. He looks terrified. Shoulders rigid, eyes wide, lips pressed into a thin line. The other man stands with calm assurance, his hand resting on the hilt of his katana, robes untouched by dirt or fear. His expression is unreadable, but his presence is absolute. A samurai. You try to understand what happened, but there is no one to ask, no one who would answer. It doesn't matter now. A line has been crossed, an insult has been made. And here, some insults are washed away, not with apology, but with blood. No words are exchanged. The rules do not require them. The samurai steps forward slowly, his sandals brushing against the dirt. The apprentice flinches. The distance between them is no more than a few feet, but it feels immense. The air thickens. Your breath catches. Then, the blade is drawn. It is a single movement, a flick of the wrist. a line of silver so fast it barely seems real. You don't even see the cut. You only hear the sound, the faint hiss of steel through air, followed by the dull thud of knees hitting the ground. The apprentice collapses, a cut across the abdomen. Not enough to kill instantly, but enough to drop him. He gasps, clutches his stomach, eyes wide with shock. Blood pools beneath him, dark and thick in the dust. No one rushes to him, no one screams. Instead, the samurai steps back, sheathes his sword with reverence, and bows deeply. Not to the wounded man, but to the village, to the balance that has been restored. The code of honor, once shaken, is now preserved. You stand frozen. This is not a crime. This is not chaos. It is order, wrapped in silence and sanctioned by centuries of ritual. Later, you hear the story in fragments. The apprentice raised his voice. He questioned something. A decision, a message, a command. It was not his place. He refused to apologize. That was his mistake. His real crime was pride. And in this world, pride not balanced by position is dangerous. You try to make sense of it, but there is no logic by modern standards, no trial, no law book. Here, the law is carried at the hip, sharpened and polished, and the only appeal is the precision of the strike. You return to your hut that night, unable to forget the sound of that blade. Not the violence, but the precision, the beauty of it. It frightens you, how graceful it was, how clean. You begin to understand what honor means here. It is not politeness, it is not virtue, it is survival. It is standing where you belong and never stepping beyond. It is obedience wrapped in silk, death wrapped in ceremony. For a samurai, it is better to die with honor than to live with disgrace. They would slit their bellies open to atone for failure, kneel in white robes before their lords, offer their lives as currency for the sake of appearance. And they would be remembered not for their mistakes, but for how perfectly they paid the price. You realize, with cold clarity, that this world is not ruled by swords alone. It is ruled by the idea that a person's worth is etched into how they die. And no one is exempt. Not the apprentice, not the samurai, not you. You once thought of religion as something separate, a belief you could accept or decline, a matter of personal choice, private conviction. But here, in this land of mist and ritual, you begin to understand that faith is not a part of life. It is life, and it surrounds you, whether you believe or not. It begins subtly. Early one morning, you notice an old woman crouched by a small stone in the corner of the path. It's worn smooth by wind and time, barely noticeable. She places a tiny bowl of rice beside it, folds her hands, and bows twice. Once deeply, once softly. She whispers something under her breath, so quietly that even standing a few feet away, you can't hear the words. Then she rises and leaves, never looking back. No one questions her. No one mocks the act. It's as natural as breathing. Later, you begin to see the shrines. They appear where you least expect them, tucked into the roots of old trees, perched atop hills, built into the walls of homes. Some are small and wooden, with fading paint and paper charms fluttering in the wind. Others are grander, their red torii gates standing like sentinels against the sky, daring you to enter only if your heart is clean. You walk past one shrine at dusk. The light is dim, the path lined with stones. Incense curls upward from a clay bowl, and bells chime faintly in the breeze. A fox statue guards the entrance, its eyes sharp and eternal. You pause. Something in the air shifts. A presence you can't name, something both warm and watchful. You bow, though no one is around to see you. You don't know why you do it. You just do. In the evenings, you hear the stories, told in whispers, by firelight, over bowls of broth. Tales of spirits that steal children who wander too far at night, of mountains that move when angered, of ghosts that appear by the river on foggy mornings, crying softly, seeking something they lost long ago. The villagers do not tell these stories for amusement. They speak them like warnings, like weather, things to expect, to respect. You learn about Kami, the spirits of wind, fire, stone, tree. Not gods, not quite, but forces, conscious and powerful. A river is not just water, it has a soul. A grove is not just trees, it has memory. Every place you walk has a name, a silence, a history that stretches far beyond your presence. And each of those places demands respect. When someone falls ill, a priest may visit. Not with medicine, but with chants, bells, offerings. He wears white, his head shaved, his steps measured. He does not speak to the sick. He speaks to what surrounds them, to what may have entered them, what may need to be appeased. The villagers watch solemnly, bowing with each movement of his hands. No one questions whether it works. That is not the point. The ritual is the medicine. Even mundane actions have their rituals. Before entering a home, you remove your shoes, not just for cleanliness, but to separate the outer world from the sacred space within. You bow before eating. You never speak with your mouth full. You do not whistle at night. It invites snakes, or worse, the attention of hungry spirits. You do not point at graves. You do not sleep with your head facing north. At first, these rules feel strange. Folklore, superstition. But as days pass, you stop thinking of them as rules. You begin to move with them. You bow at shrines. You nod to the fox statues. You leave rice at the base of a tree without fully knowing why. It becomes part of the rhythm, and in some quiet, unspoken way, it brings peace. Because in this world, where swords hang at every hip and justice is delivered without trial, these beliefs offer something different. Not safety, perhaps, but meaning. A way to explain suffering. A way to stay small in a world too vast to understand. And you wonder, is it truly superstition if it brings order to chaos? One night, you dream of a girl in white robes standing in the field. Her hair flows in the wind, though the air is still. She doesn't speak. She only stares, her eyes deep and endless. When you wake, the dream lingers like incense, and though you don't remember her face, you bow slightly as you rise, just in case she's still watching. You've been here long enough now to understand the rhythm of life. The days begin early, with cold air and quiet steps, and end with dim fires and silent meals. Words are used sparingly. Instructions are short. Emotions, when they come, are masked by bowed heads and neutral expressions. At first, you thought it was caution, then fear. Now you understand. It's something deeper, something deliberate. Silence is not a void here, it is a presence. At home, silence meant awkwardness, an empty room, a pause in conversation, something to be filled. Here, silence is a sign of control, a tool of respect, a test of patience. The more you stay quiet, the more you begin to hear. Not just sounds, but intention. The rustling of fabric means someone is bowing nearby. The scratch of straw on the floor means the old man is adjusting the fire. The soft clink of a bowl means the meal is over, and it's time to leave. You begin to recognize the silences between people. When two men speak in the square, their words are few, but their pauses are long. One says something, then waits. The other bows slightly, replies with a single phrase, then waits in return. Their eyes rarely meet. Their posture is perfect. And somehow, an entire conversation happens between them. Without raising voices, without a single wasted word. It becomes clear that here, what is not said matters more than what is. You begin to speak less, not out of fear, but out of choice. You've learned how quickly your foreignness reveals itself in the way your voice rises or falls, in how you try to explain, apologize, fill the silence. But no one here needs explanations. No one asks for your story, and so you stop telling it. Instead, you observe. You notice how the women communicate with glances, with the placement of a cup, with the adjustment of a child's sleeve. How an older man's silence can rebuke louder than any shout. How the way someone bows, quickly or deeply or not at all, can shape the next hour, the next day, the next season. One evening, you're invited, or perhaps allowed, to sit with a small group during a shared meal. They nod as you approach, make space for you. You kneel, fold your hands, and eat slowly, imitating their every move. No one speaks. The fire pops softly. Steam rises from wooden bowls. Someone coughs, just once. No one looks up. For half an hour, there are no words. And it is the most peaceful company you've known since you arrived. You begin to understand your place through the silences you're given. When people nod to you without speaking, it's trust. When they hand you a tool without explanation, it's expectation. When they sit beside you without question, it's belonging. Words would ruin it. And yet, there are moments when silence feels sharp. Like when a mistake is made, when a gesture is too casual, when your robe is tied incorrectly and someone notices, but says nothing. Their eyes rest on you for just a second longer than necessary. That's all. That's enough. The silence then is heavier. It teaches more than any correction could. You recall the first time you tried to thank someone, to speak the word aloud, and they only bowed in reply. You felt clumsy, out of place. Now you bow instead. It says more. There's a calm in this way of being, a precision. You find yourself breathing slower, thinking before moving, listening more than speaking. Even the thoughts in your head begin to soften. You no longer narrate your every action. You simply move. And yet, there is still fear behind the silence, because it is not always kind. It can exclude as easily as it can welcome. It can shield secrets and deepen shame. You know now that when someone is not spoken to for a day or longer, it's not because they are forgotten. It's because they are being judged. Silence is both shelter and sword, but in learning to live with it, you feel something shift inside you. You are no longer just mimicking this world. You are absorbing it. The silence has become a language. And though you don't speak it fluently yet, you've stopped needing translation. And in this language, you begin to understand that survival here depends not on strength, not on status, but on knowing when to be still, when to be small, and when to say nothing at all. The first sign that something is different comes with the sound of drums. Faint at first, distant, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. You hear it just before sunset, a deep, hollow rhythm carried on the wind. It echoes through the narrow alleys and across the wet rooftops. For the first time since your arrival, the village does not feel heavy. It feels expectant. You step outside and notice lanterns being hung. Small paper globes tied to long wooden poles, their shapes bobbing slightly in the breeze. Children dart from house to house, laughing in short bursts before being hushed by their mothers. Men carry bundles of straw and boxes of decorations. Women unfold vibrant fabrics and press them with flat stones, smoothing each crease with reverence. Even the air smells different. Not of smoke and soil, but of sweet rice and burnt sugar. No one tells you what's happening, but you don't ask. You've learned not to ask. Instead, you follow the movement, absorbing it through stillness, through silence. You sense that this is a festival, one that has arrived not suddenly, but cyclically, like the turning of seasons. It is not celebrated for entertainment. It is honored. You are not invited, but you are permitted to watch. By dusk, the village is transformed. Lanterns glow from every doorway. casting a soft golden light on faces and robes. The square that once held punishment now holds beauty. A platform has been built, simple, wooden, surrounded by offerings, bowls of rice, flowers, coins wrapped in cloth. At its center burns a fire, not a hearth for cooking, but a ceremonial flame, tall and bright, licking at the darkening sky. You stand at the edge of it all, trying not to disturb the flow. Families gather, dressed in robes more colorful than you've ever seen here. Deep indigos, warm reds, patterns of waves and cranes and blossoms. Hair is tied with ribbons. Faces are calm but lit with something gentle, almost radiant. There is no laughter, no shouting, but the joy is unmistakable. Held inside, not flaunted. It lives in the eyes. Then the drums begin again. Slower now, but deliberate. A group of women steps into the square, moving in a wide circle around the fire. Their sleeves ripple with each motion. Their hands glide through the air as though stirring something invisible. Each step is practiced, exact. The dance is not wild, it is reverent, controlled. Like everything else in this world, it obeys rhythm and rule. But within that structure, there is grace. You feel it. For a moment, your heart lifts. The heat from the fire reaches your face. The smoke rises in elegant spirals. The drum beats settle into your bones. You do not belong here, but you do not feel excluded. You are no longer a threat, no longer a disruption. Just a shadow, watching a world older than memory perform its quiet ritual of celebration. As the night deepens, food is passed around. Grilled fish wrapped in leaves, small rice balls dusted with salt, cups of warm sake poured with both hands. You are given some, wordlessly. You bow in return and eat slowly. The flavors are subtle, earthy, full of intention. They taste like the season. You watch as prayers are written on thin strips of paper and tied to branches. Wishes, perhaps, or promises. Some are burned in the fire, the smoke carrying them to the gods. Others are left in the trees, fluttering softly like silk spirits waiting to be heard. And still, no one speaks loudly. Even joy here is quiet. You notice a child lighting a candle with trembling fingers, his mother steadying his hand. You see an old man kneel before the fire, pressing his forehead to the earth. You see a girl smile, not wide, not bold, but gently, with eyes closed, as if the moment itself was enough. You do not understand every symbol, every gesture, but you feel their weight, their sincerity. This is not a performance. This is inheritance. Memory carried in fabric and flame. It is a celebration not of freedom, but of connection. You stand there until your legs ache, unwilling to break the moment. The fire crackles. The drums fade. The dancers finish. The crowd begins to bow, one by one, then turn and leave, as quietly as they came. You return to the hut long after the flames have died down. The lanterns are still glowing, their paper blackened at the edges. The wind is cooler now. And in the silence that follows ceremony, you feel something strange and unexpected. Hope. Not the kind that burns bright and reckless, but the kind that flickers, endures, waits. And in this world, perhaps, that is enough. The fire from the festival has long since faded. The paper lanterns are gone, the square swept clean. Life in the village returns to its rhythm, a rhythm you've learned to match, or at least not disturb. You work in the mornings. You rest when permitted. You speak less. You listen more. The days blend quietly, like water in the paddy fields. Slow, shallow, deliberate. But something shifts. At first, it's small. A man arrives on horseback, a rare sight. His clothing is finer than what you've seen in the village, though stained by travel. He carries a satchel tied tightly to his side and speaks to the headman in hushed tones behind a closed door. When he leaves, the villagers do not ask questions aloud, but glances are exchanged. Shoulders tighten. Tasks are completed faster. Conversations shorten. A few days later, 3 men from the village are called aside. Not punished, not questioned, simply summoned. You watch them pack modest bundles, food, cloth, tools, and tie their sandals with slow, focused hands. No one weeps, no one begs. They bow to their families and walk toward the forest path. They do not return. There are fewer smiles in the fields now. Fewer songs hummed under breath. You notice it in the meals, slightly smaller portions, less variety. The miso is thinner. The rice is stretched with more water. No one complains. They simply adapt. Quietly, you sense the change in the way people speak. Not what they say, but what they don't. The air holds something heavy. Not fear exactly, but awareness. Like the moment before a storm, when the wind holds still and the birds go quiet. You've seen that silence before. And now, it returns. You ask nothing. You have learned not to ask. One evening, you help carry firewood to the edge of the village and see a group of elders gathered beneath the cedar tree. They are seated in a wide circle, robes neat, faces drawn. A scroll lies open before them, the red seal at the bottom unmistakable. You recognize the symbols from the banner carried by the horsemen. The conversation is low and tense. One elder speaks with his hands, gesturing toward the hills. Another shakes his head slowly. No one raises their voice. No one makes proclamations. But you feel the tremor of consequence in their silence. This is not a discussion about crops or storms. This is war. That night, the old man in your hut sharpens his sickle by lantern light. Slowly, methodically. He does not speak. The rhythmic scrape of stone on steel fills the room. You sit across from him, hands folded in your lap, not daring to break the sound. He finishes, wipes the blade clean, and places it beside the door. Not where it usually rests, tucked safely behind tools, but close. Ready. Later, the headman walks the length of the village, stopping at every door. You watch as families hand him bundles, rice, pickled roots, salt. He does not take them greedily. He bows each time. But you understand, this is not charity. It is preparation. By morning, every man over a certain age is called to the square. They arrive with what little they have. Hoes, spears, sharpened bamboo poles. Some wear armor pieced together from old plates and lacquered leather. Others wear only robes, their expressions resigned. They are not trained soldiers, but they do not resist. You stand back, watching, invisible again. And perhaps for the first time, you are glad for it. Because the war is not a tale. It is not a scroll. It is not glory. It is hunger. It is sons leaving without goodbye. It is food measured in smaller bowls. It is sandals tied tighter. It is silence growing heavier. You walk past the rice fields the next day and see the water is lower. The paddies are not full. Labor is fewer. Time moves faster now, but nothing feels ready. You look to the mountains, and for the first time, they no longer seem like peaceful silhouettes. They are borders. They are walls. And beyond them, something moves. The war is coming. Not loudly, not all at once, but step by step, message by message, name by name. And when it arrives, no one will be untouched. The days stretch on, and yet each feels shorter than the last. You wake before dawn without being called. Your hands reach for the water jar before you fully open your eyes. You walk to the fields without hesitation. Your back bends easier now. Your knees no longer scream when you kneel. You speak even less than before, not out of fear, but out of habit. The silence no longer feels empty. It feels appropriate. You have not been taught with words. There were no lectures, no guidance, no translation. But the land has taught you. The people have taught you. Not by what they said, but by what they endured. And slowly, you have changed. You eat your food without rushing, even when you are hungry. You bow without thinking, to elders, to fire, to trees. You accept what is given and expect nothing more. When a child stumbles near you, you help him up. Not with noise, not with comfort, but with a quiet pat on the back and a gentle nudge toward his mother. That is enough, and you begin to understand the truth that was waiting for you from the start. Survival here is not about strength. It is not about knowledge. It is about acceptance. The world does not explain itself to you. You are expected to mold yourself to it. And if you cannot, it will move on without you. One evening, as the sun bleeds orange across the paddies, the old man invites you to sit with him by the fire. He does not speak for a long time. He simply pours tea. One cup for himself, one for you. You hold it with both hands, as you've learned. The heat seeps into your fingers. The steam rises between you, soft and slow. Then finally he speaks, a single sentence. Quiet, unhurried. You understand none of the words, but you nod anyway. Because the meaning isn't in the sentence. It's in the act of speaking at all. It is the first thing he's ever said to you directly. He finishes his tea. He stands. He bows, not deeply, but respectfully. And you bow in return. For the first time, you believe you've done it correctly. The moment passes like a breath. Later that night, as you lie on your mat, you think about what you've learned. Not just how to tie a robe or how deep to bow, but how to watch, how to wait, how to be still when the world shifts around you. You understand now why no one rushes, why no one explains. Because the world here is already full, and to live inside it, you must become part of it. Not louder, not stronger, just present. You are not from here. You may never be. But for this one quiet night, beneath these old wooden beams, beside this fading fire, you are no longer a stranger. And perhaps that too is enough. It begins with dust. A fine, pale cloud trailing behind a lone figure moving along the mountain path. From a distance, the shape is strange. Too upright to be a villager, too solitary to be a soldier. The birds in the trees fall silent as he approaches. Even the breeze seems to pause, waiting. You're in the garden, turning soil for early herbs, when you hear the murmur ripple through the village like a soft wave. Someone is coming. You stand slowly. No one calls out. No one runs. The villagers move toward the path in a calm, measured line, their faces unreadable. Curiosity is not shown here, only presence. You follow behind them and see him clearly now. He is tall, cloaked, weathered by wind and sun. His robe is deep green, trimmed in black, the fabric unfamiliar. He carries no bundle, no food, no tool. Only a long staff and a small sword tucked neatly at his waist. He walks with purpose, but not arrogance. His eyes scan the village slowly, not as if he is searching, but remembering. He stops at the entrance to the square. No one speaks. The silence is deep, respectful, watchful. The headman steps forward and bows. The stranger bows back. Lower, much lower. And that is when you realize, this is not a challenge. This is a return. They speak quietly. The stranger's voice is hoarse but deliberate. You catch fragments, names, places, the mention of a lord, a province, a war. His words are not rushed, but they carry weight, as though each syllable has traveled far and paid for passage. Then the scroll is handed over, sealed in red wax. The headman receives it with both hands and bows again. He does not open it in front of the others. He turns, walks away without a word. The villagers do the same. There is no ceremony, no questions, but you feel the change. The visitor remains in the village that night. He is given a place near the fire, served tea in silence. He does not speak unless spoken to. And even then, his replies are short. His presence is not threatening, yet he draws a line around himself with every movement. A line no one crosses. You find yourself watching him from a distance, not out of fear, but fascination. He is not like the villagers. His robe is cleaner, his hands smoother. His sword is not ceremonial. It has been used. You can tell by the way it rests against him. He is a man who has walked through war, through snow, through time. Later, as night falls, you pass him sitting alone under the eaves of the temple. He does not look at you, but he knows you're there. He speaks, softly, without turning his head. You are not from here. It is not a question. You freeze. The words are in your language. Imperfect, but unmistakable. You feel your breath catch. He turns slightly, just enough for the firelight to catch the edge of his face. Lined, calm, serious. He does not smile. He does not explain. And then he says no more. You walk away slowly, unsure if what just happened was real. No one else saw. No one else will speak of it. In the morning, he's gone. But the scroll remains. And the village is different now. The quiet is heavier. The work faster. Tools are sharpened. Fields are harvested early. You sense the pulse of something drawing closer. Something inevitable. And in your chest, a question begins to grow. One you do not ask aloud. Was he a warning or a farewell? It begins before dawn. The village has never been loud, but this morning it is quieter than ever. The birds do not sing. The wind does not move. Even the bamboo chimes, usually stirred by the faintest breeze, hang still and silent. You wake before the sun, not from sound, but from weight. Something heavy and invisible pressing against your chest. You sit up slowly and listen, but there is nothing to hear. That, more than anything, tells you that today is different. You step outside, and the sky is dim and gray, the air thick with dew. The ground beneath your feet feels colder than usual, as though the earth itself is holding its breath. People are already awake. The first thing you notice is the bundles. Small piles of cloth, food, tools, laid neatly outside each doorway, tied tight, ready. You see no horses, no carts. This will not be a journey of comfort. They are leaving. No one cries. No one protests. The choice was made long ago, or perhaps there was never a choice to begin with. The scroll brought by the mountain visitor said what needed to be said. The names were read, the paths marked. And now the time has come to go. You walk through the village and feel the pull of change in every corner. A mother braids her daughter's hair with shaking hands. A man kneels beside his field, pressing his palm into the soil one last time. Two boys sit together, facing the forest, saying nothing. Even the animals seem to sense it. The chickens huddle silently. The dogs do not bark. At the edge of the village, the headman stands with his hands behind his back, looking down the road that winds between the trees. His robe is dark, his face unreadable. A boy hands him a water flask, and he nods once. He's not leaving. He is sending. That may be harder. You return to the hut, where the old man is sitting cross-legged by the hearth. He sharpens his blade slowly, the stone hissing against the metal with each motion. He has not spoken since the scroll arrived. He has packed nothing. But beside him lies a small bundle wrapped in cloth, tucked behind the door. You realize he is waiting. You kneel near the fire and he finally looks at you. For a long moment, there is only the sound of steel against stone. Then he speaks. "Tomorrow," he says. Just one word, in Japanese, quiet, final. You do not answer. You bow deeply, holding the gesture longer than usual. And when you rise, his eyes are closed. Outside, the village continues its quiet preparation. The young men gather at the square. Each one dressed plainly, heads shaved, faces tense but calm. Some carry spears. Others hold only bamboo poles. One wears a breastplate clearly borrowed from someone older, perhaps dead. The weight is too much for him, but he bears it. The women move among them, placing cloth wrappings on their hands, slipping rice balls into their packs, tying small talismans of string and paper around their belts. Protection, perhaps. Memory. A mother touches her son's face. A sister tightens the knot on her brother's robe. There are no goodbyes, only gestures. Everyone knows what the words would be. Everyone knows they would break the spell. You help gather the last of the supplies. You carry a bundle to the temple and see the priest placing incense before a worn statue. His chant is nearly silent, more breath than voice. You do not understand the words, but you understand the rhythm. You bow beside him, and for the first time, he bows back. By evening, everything is ready. The bundles are tied, the names are known. The sky turns red over the hills, casting long shadows down the main path. You watch the sun touch the horizon and feel something in your chest crack. Not pain, not grief, but a kind of opening. You understand now that there will be no return, at least not to the same place. You lie down that night on the mat where you've slept so many times before. You listen to the fire hiss softly in the hearth. You feel the walls around you, the roof above you, the woven fibers beneath you. All things that once felt alien and now feel like home. And you know that by this time tomorrow, you will be walking down that path, leaving all of it behind. Not as a visitor, but as one of them. The sun rises over the eastern hills in soft silence. No bells ring, no voices call, but the village moves. The world moves. And so do you. Your bundle is small. A robe, a piece of cloth, 2 rice balls wrapped in bamboo leaves. That is all you need. That is all anyone needs. There is no ceremony, no speech. You step out of the hut for the last time, pausing only to bow deeply at the doorway. You don't know why. You just do. It feels like the right thing. A final thank you to the space that held your body, your fear, your silence. The old man is already outside. He stands with his hands folded, the morning mist curling around his legs. He does not speak. He nods once. You nod back. That is the farewell. You walk slowly to the edge of the village, where the others are gathering. The path ahead is narrow, winding between hills you do not know. The weight in your chest is heavier than the bundle in your hands. You look around, at the homes, the trees, the shrine with its fluttering paper charms. You breathe in the scent of damp wood, charcoal, boiled rice, and you feel it. This place is not yours, but it became part of you. Every sound, every rule, every look you once misunderstood. They carved something into your bones, something that will never quite leave. You remember your first morning here, the confusion, the pain, the cold. You remember the bucket, the mud, the silence, the faces that ignored you, the glances that corrected you, the stares that judged you. You remember every mistake, every misstep, every hour spent trying to disappear into this world just enough to survive. You also remember the fire of the festival, the slow movements of the dancers, the taste of salt on your lips, the fox statue by the shrine, the soft voice in your own language, spoken by a stranger in the dark, the sound of steel, the softness of tea steam between 2 people who had nothing to say. And it strikes you now, with full clarity that what you lived through wasn't just a day. It was everything a life could be, compressed into silence. You have seen honor so sharp it could kill. You have seen punishment without cruelty, faith without explanation, joy without noise, suffering without complaint, order without law. You understand now why you wouldn't last a day here, because here every second demands something of you. Discipline, restraint, endurance, stillness. And those are things your old world never taught you how to carry. You close your eyes. You bow one final time. To the land, to the people, to the place that changed you by expecting nothing of you except that you learn how to listen. Then, without looking back, you take your first step forward. You don't know where the road will lead, but you carry with you the sound of paper lanterns swaying in the wind, and the quiet, unshakable truth. One day was enough. You've come a long way, from the quiet of a peasant's hut to the shadow of a samurai's blade, from the first taste of rice at dawn to the final step down the mountain path. You have walked, listened, and endured. And though you did not lift a sword or command a village, you did something far harder. You lived quietly, attentively, within a world that does not forgive carelessness. In feudal Japan, every glance, every gesture, every breath mattered. Silence was not absence. It was language. Order was not written. It was lived. And survival wasn't about strength. It was about balance. As you rest now, beneath your own roof, centuries away from that world, carry this with you. A single day can change who you are, not because of what you do, but because of what you witness. So close your eyes. Let your breath slow. Let the drums fade. The lanterns are dim now, the rice fields quiet, the sword returned to its sheath. You are safe. You are home. And tomorrow when you wake, remember, you wouldn't have lasted a day in feudal Japan, but somehow you just did. Good night.